Welcome to Just the Facts, episode number, what is it, Bob? It's episode number 9. We've titled this one, The Art of Pricing. And so don't be fooled about what the market's telling you right now. There is some things that we can give you, some tips that we can give you today as you're listening in to this video podcast. So again, welcome to Just the Facts. So Bob, this is an interesting one because we've had a few episodes where we've talked about inventory, and that's so hard to find. But now we're finding a little bit of inventory, but things are priced, things meaning cars are priced really, really high, both on the wholesale level, because as you read JD Power and other publications out there, it's hitting record levels at the wholesale level. And then that's really affecting retail, right? And so my question for you right out of the gate, as we have this discussion about the art of pricing, is why are prices so high on the wholesale and the retail side? What makes that happen?
Well, it's a factor of all market, right? So when you take a look at new car sales, for example, even though this is used car pricing discussion, new car market absolutely affects that, right? It affects those because when they're aggressive on new car pricing and new car incentives and new car rebates and all those things, it slows down used car sales initially, but all those trade-ins that you create and all that inventory supply you create by additional new car sales gives you that supply, right? And drives the market. But what you have now is a bunch of storms coming together. Whether you want to talk about COVID, which everyone's getting tired of talking about. We've learned that over the last few meetings we've had with dealers. But if you do look at that particular ingredient, you have people with pent up emotions and desire, and people like cars, and you know, it's always been a thrill of a lifetime to buy a car. So people that have been pent up for months or even a year and have been putting off buying cars, as certain states lift certain restrictions and business becomes more and more available, the supply line just isn't there, right? So all these dealers have the ability to sell if they have inventory. So they're all out scouring the country for every little bit and piece of inventory, and that drives pricing up. So as demand is high and inventory is low, it is a seller's market. So that is why inventory is priced the way it's priced, which leads to the question, what are you going to do about it, right? They're saying they're throwing out the books. You can't use a book. You can't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting because that very thing, like we heard it, we both heard it last week. We were talking to a few dealers and just trying to get their insight, right? And that's like they all said, hey, when it comes to acquiring vehicles and looking at the price, I've thrown the books out the window. So what the heck? Like, what do you do with that? Then how do you actually evaluate a vehicle if that's true?
Well, it's funny. They were talking about all sources, not just ours, of course. They said it doesn't matter which tools you're using in the marketplace. They just can't keep up. And there's some validity to that. Used car pricing's adjusting rapidly. We, among the pricing companies out there, do the best we can and keeping up with that stuff. But there's no way anyone can be exactly to the day what's going on in the marketplace. But to throw out the books is just a term, right? You still have to take your time. You still have to slow down. You still have to make good business decisions. Can you be a little careless now when the market's a little fatter? Yes, you can. That'll come around to roost. We even had some dealers say they're okay with that, right? When the wholesale comes back around and maybe they're in these cars a little heavy, they're okay with that because meanwhile they need to stay in business, which makes a lot of sense. The automobile business is an offensive play. You need to be in the game. The minute you get too conservative, you're done, right? You're done. Without cars, you're out of business. So you got to have cars, which we need to get one point across. Pricing them's one thing, obtaining them's another. They need to be looking internally first. If they're missing trades, that's a crime, right? If you're missing trades because you don't put enough in it, that's a crime. If you aren't aggressively going after your service departments and trying to pull the inventory out of there, now is more than ever when you can step up, keep your best customer, your customer, give them more money than they're expecting for their trade, and put a deal together. Things like lease returns. For every lease return that gets out of your door, that's a shame. Right? That's a shame. So they need to do that. And pricing's got a lot to do with that because they need to be confident that the market is higher than it's been before, right? In the past, some dealers didn't keep the lease returns because they thought they had to pay too much. Well, that's only relative to what you can sell it for. And right now, more than ever, pricing is up there. So have confidence, grab your inventory when it's at your dealership, make sure you hang on to it, price it aggressively, right? But price it smart. No two used vehicles are the same. We'll get into that discussion in just a second.
So when pricing is so high where it is in the market, and let's talk about retail units for just a minute. So you bought in a vehicle, you put, as much money as you needed to or had to actually acquire that inventory. So you have something on the front line, right? Yeah. And so when you look at the retail units out there, wouldn't it make sense to have a better story when you're listing that vehicle online? I know this is kind of a softball thing, but you and I have talked about this a lot over the past year of really telling a story. Don't just use VIN explosion to put, the make, model, miles, color, all that, stuff, the tilt cruise, all that, right? So what can a person do as a best practice when it comes to a listing to affect the pricing? And I kind of know the answer here, but I think our listening audience kind of deserves like something like we can give them that they can practically do right now. And I think this is one area where they can take a little bit more time, right? And by describing that vehicle online is going to be so important.
You're 100% right. And here's the thing. You called it a softball or whatever, but we just had how many meetings with dealers, and what are they saying? Going back to basics, covering the grounds, covering the basic steps. We can't be sloppy now. We can't make mistakes now. But it all fell back down to the basics, right? They don't want to call it COVID. They want to call it time to tighten in the belt or whatever else they want to call it. But listings is exactly that. You can't just arbitrarily throw a car online and give it some generic description because it won't stand out, right? You're up against a person selling their car at Walmart, right? They got cars listed in certain places. You're up against independent dealers and franchise dealers. All of a sudden, they're in the same space. You got rental companies selling their cars. They're in the same space. How do you set your inventory apart? You know what? If you're a franchise dealer and you're not doing CPO, that's a shame, right? Because you can give a quality description. But make that car stand out. Who owned it? How many owners did it have? Was it taken care of? Did your dealership take care of it since you sold it new? You've done all the service and maintenance, and now it's for sale because it was your best customer who bought another car from you. There's 4 elements that should be in that story, right? Every car's got power windows, power locks, tilt, cruise. When you need to make sure you're doing the right steps to be profitable in this time, go back, take your time, spend your time where you're making money, and spend less time where you're losing money. And where you're making money is making a good quality decision on a piece of inventory that you're going to retail. And if you've made that decision, which you should have made, you need to take the time and make it stand out in a sea of inventory available to the public today. The more personality you can give a car, the less mechanical you talk about a car, the less generic you talk about the car. Give a car a personality. Listen, everyone names their cars, right? Your first car, the car you remember, the movies are named after cars with names. Give your car a personality and make it stand out online.
I like that. The personality side, I think, is huge. It's a big deal, which goes into what you were talking about a few minutes ago, and that was no two vehicles are alike. Like there's no vehicle. Every vehicle is unique in its own way, in its own subset. And we always promise to not have a Carfax commercial here, but there is a question that I want to ask you on this, and that would be setting aside or trying to really look at some of the inventory that's out there that's different than everything else. And that would mean vehicles that a dealer has sold new, serviced on a regular basis, and then it's back in their lot. And you and I have been calling this homegrown, right? You can call it whatever you want. But that inventory, I want to know, and my question is this, is one, how do you identify it? And then 2 is, will a customer pay more? And do we have proof that a customer will pay more for a vehicle that is homegrown?
Yes, and yes, right? A car that was sold new by my dealership, and my mechanics, my factory certified mechanics have taken care of it its whole life, right? And then it gets traded back into me because that customer likes doing business with me, speaks volumes to not only that car, but to the way I do business, which is just as important as the vehicle description, right? How do you do business? Who are you? Why should they do business with you, right? So when you can put things in a description like, we sold this car brand new. It's one of our best customers. As a matter of fact, they traded it in to buy another one from us. We've taken care of this car its whole life. That is the top of the line for what consumers are looking for, right? Consumers today, we know the stats. Consumers today still fear accidents, so that's the first thing they ask. But when they're making the buying decision, they want to know, was the car taken care of? Listen, it's a simple quotient, right? Would you rather have a car that's never had a ding done to it but has never been taken care of either? Or would you rather a car that got hit in a bumper once but has been taken care of every 3,000 miles at a dealer by a quality mechanic? Which one you picking? Well, the public's the same way. So accidents will probably always be number one because there's that certain scare factor to that. But in terms of longevity, which is what consumers are wanting more than anything, it's great that it's great, but how long is it going to be great for me? And you can predict the future by looking at the past, which is exactly what history will tell you. So if a car's been taken care of, if a car's had all its regular maintenance, its likelihood to last longer for the new buyer is just that, right? Because when you don't take care of a car, damage occurs. There's no way to get around that. If you don't change the oil and your oil's reducing its ability, damage occurs. If you don't do the brakes when they're supposed to be done, they heat up. When they heat up the road, it goes on and on and on and on. So a car that's been taken care of will absolutely be more of a predictable future for a consumer, and that's what they want to know. So not only do they want to know what it was, what kind of car was it, but they want to know what you've done. So that should be in your description. Hey, we've gone through this car. We've done 100 and whatever point inspection. This car is built to last. We've done a great thorough job. This is a good buy for you. All that needs to be in that description.
No, that makes total sense. And it kind of brings me back to, what we titled this of the art of pricing.
Yes.
Like it's not just about pricing the vehicle. There's so much more to it. And then once you have a price is what you do about it. So if you were a dealership today, if you went back into the dealer world, which I don't know if that would be a good thing for you, but we love you at Carfax. We don't want you to go anywhere. But if you did have a dealership today, who would be the right person to help in that area? Who would you hire? Would you have salespeople do it? Would you do it yourself? Would a used car manager do that? Who would actually take hold and take ownership of the listings before it's really priced out, or maybe even after that it's priced out, and make sure that that story is being told?
I would do one of two things, right? One of two things. And that is, you spend time where you're making money. A description will absolutely make you money. So I would either invest in a dedicated person who is not a car salesperson to write my descriptions, right? Because I would want the consistency, the look, the feel to be there, right? However, in these times, a lot of dealers are cutting costs, not adding costs. If you were to add one, that would be a smart one. But if not, I would let my salespeople adopt my cars. So I would go, hey, DJ, we just traded for this 2017 Infiniti QX, whatever. Tell me everything you can find out about that car. Let's put that into a quality description, but I want you to drive it. I want you to tell me what it acts like. I want you to tell me how it drives. I want you to tell the consumers what we've done to it. And if we should sell that car within the first 30 days, boom, here's a spiff, right? Because that salesperson will look at that car, follow that car, wonder why it's aging, make sure it's always clean, make sure it's parked up front, make sure there's not a McDonald's bag in it. So you get kind of a two-for with that one. Not only do you get a outside opinion on the quality description, but you get someone who marries the car and follows it, right? Because they want to sell in the first 30 days. So I would do either one of those two things. I would either, again, hire a dedicated person, probably an hourly employee. And again, if my turn time gets affected, I want them to have some fun and some skin in the game, if you will. So I would go that route. And if I wasn't going that route, I would let my salespeople write the descriptions. And again, I would keep them engaged and keep it fun and keep it entertaining.
So, some of you may be wondering, as you're listening in or watching this video podcast, like, don't they usually have a guest on Just the Facts? And we normally do, but we've kind of breaking things up a little bit because we want to really dig into a subject on one of our podcasts and then bring in an expert to really help us define what it was we're talking about. So we have this really cool guest that's coming up. He's kind of a world-renowned guy. I don't know how you were able to get him to schedule this and put this on his calendar, but maybe Bob, you can talk about who that guest is. We're not going to do a tease. We're going to actually tell you in 2 weeks, that'd be May 4th, who that special guest is going to be. And we're going to talk about this very thing, pricing, the effectiveness of it, market, all that kind of stuff. And so who is that guy going to be?
You know, we are very honored and quite honestly thrilled that Mr. Dale Pollock will be joining us in 2 weeks. You know, Dale is world renowned, as you said, for his velocity pricing model, which became the auto, right? And Dale is a very interesting person. He is a student of the game. He is quite intelligent when you talk to him. And I've been lucky enough to be with Dale over the years, speaking at certain engagements together and doing dual presentations and so forth. And, you know, quite honestly, when we reached out to him, I'd like to tell you it was a challenge and I fought my way to get him, but he was pretty excited about coming on because pricing is where it's at today, you know, and, you know, if you price a car too high to market, you lose traffic. Everyone knows that. But, you know, the opposite's true, too. If you price a car too low to market, you lose traffic because people are concerned. And, you know, this topic today is the art of pricing. And that's something we need to discuss before too long because, you know, the art of pricing is knowing when to ask for the money and knowing when to just move the unit, right? Mm-hmm. It's that fine line of how many days in inventory is the right amount of days. If I price it too high and I go too long with my aging, that costs me a lot of money. But you know what? If I'm short selling everything and just burning and turning, I'm not making enough profit. That hurts me just as much. So the art of pricing is to look at a specific unit from retail perspective and know why I can ask what I'm about to ask and then put that again in the description. And if I'm over market, I'm going to say why. If I'm under market, I'm going to say why. And those are some of the things Dale's going to talk to in a couple of weeks, right? So I want to kind of tie that all in together because, you know, we are experts because we know a lot of experts, right? Mm-hmm. Truth in Lending, I haven't run a dealership in 9 years now, right? But we have 30,000 dealer partners and we talk constantly to the best people in the industry, which makes us well informed, but it doesn't make us the experts. So when we get an opportunity to have an expert like Dale Pollock come to our show, we're both honored and flattered all at the same time. And I can't wait to get some of his insights made available to everyone.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. And again, that's May 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern, just exactly 2 weeks from today. And so it's going to be a great time, Bob. I'm so looking forward to having him on. We've heard so much from him and about him and what a great guy and what a great mind, especially for the automotive industry. And what I like best about Dale is his adaptation to what's happening today in the market and really changing things and not just sticking with it has to be this way. It was this way 10 years ago. And you could see that in his book. If you haven't read his book, please read his book. And you can see as he's on next week and some of the other things that he's done in speaking engagements that he's really tuned into right now today in this market and how to really evaluate vehicles, both at the wholesale side and then pricing them at the retail side. So we're looking forward to that. So again, tune in May 4th. And we thank our audience for tuning into this video podcast. We wouldn't be anywhere without you tuning in and watching us. So thanks for being there.